At this moment, I'm going to introduce Michael Mandu. He's going to be the moderator for this program, for this session. So he is the Secretary of Trade, and he's going to have the panelists introduce themselves. So thank you again, and let's get started. Thank you, Michael.
A very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. As already informed, my name is Michael Mandu, the Secretary for Trade from the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. Before me is a panel of 5 eminent business people, and I want to give them a chance to say who they are very briefly, knowing that one of them is likely to leave very, very soon. When I make my remarks, I'll ask him to quickly give us some of the issues that we can think about even as he leaves this scene. So you have the floor to say who you are. I'll begin from there.
Thank you. It works. Good afternoon. My name is Jas Bedi. I'm the chairman of Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency. I'm also the chairman of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance and the vice chair of East African Business Council. In my private life, I'm running a textile business in Uganda, from field to fashion, and a similar business in Kenya in synthetics, from spinning all the way to apparel. I'm exporting to Europe and to the US, and this session is actually very important for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us as well. I'm a Kenyan-American entrepreneur. I was recently appointed I'm a trustee on the Kenya Hospital Authority Trust Fund, and I'm one of those, what I would say, diaspora returnee. So I actually spend half of my time in Kenya and half of my time in the US. I am based in Minnesota. I've lived in the US for probably 2 decades. I am in the healthcare space in the US. I come from a medical background and a public health background. So we run a chronic disease case management company in Minnesota. And I also invest in South America. We do construction and concrete batching in South America. We have about 50 employees in South America. I have about 35 to 40 employees in Kenya. I'm also doing some farming in Kenya in a place called Evi near Nanyuki. And so I pretty much live half the time in Kenya and half the time in Minnesota. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mohean Njoroge. I'm the CEO of African Shipping. I'm primarily focused on exporting stuff from here to Kenya. This is a new era, and I'm seeing a lot of opportunities in this meeting for Kenyans in the diaspora to start importing stuff from Kenya into the US. There's a lot of opportunities, ladies and gentlemen. Keep your eyes open and snap the chance when it comes available. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nuru Mugambi. Nice to see you. I'm a diaspora returnee. I first came to the US when I was 19, left when I was 30 to work at Barclays, and then spent 10 years as a director at the Kenya Bankers Association. And then I moved back here to Atlanta 3 years ago to get my daughter into high school. As you know, for those of us who are here in Georgia, Georgia has a fantastic education system in terms of providing you with those opportunities to reduce your cost of school education. So right now my daughter is in high school at Midtown. She's actually out there exhibiting, so please make sure you pass and see her exhibit, because it's a good example of why certain policies matter. The reason why I'm talking about policies, that's my area of influence and training. I'm a policy advisor. I focus on sustainable finance, policy advocacy. So right now I'm advising the World Bank on that. I'm also with the KEPSA Economic Diplomacy Sector Board. So I'm really interested to also speak with you and hear from you how through KEPSA we can better support you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Danson Mkile. I live in Dallas, Texas. I'm a data engineer working in the aviation industry. and also I'm the director of Jamhuri Diaspora Circle, an investment company here in the US, bringing all Kenyans to invest, put their resources together, then they can invest back home. Also, I'm the founder of Inferior Solutions Company. It's a tech company based in Nairobi, where we try to, what I do is support those students who just finished their university. They don't have to go anywhere. I've just done a non-profit for them so that they can get experience. I give them the hosting services as another infrastructure that they need, so that once they get some experience with the company, actually they can now go to their industry. And some of them actually work with MasterCard at the moment, Safaricom at the same time. So it's like just seeding the young people who are finished university in computer science and other IT-related courses. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Were we supposed to have another panelist there? And why is she keeping away? Okay. Give me a microphone. Just say who you are. Don't tell us your whole life story, because I know that gentleman is seated on the edge of his seat.
Yeah, my name is Anastasia Kimtai. I work with KCB. I thought I'd responded with all the banking questions, but because you demanded, I've come back again. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Colleagues, before I go into the questions that are before us, I want us to look at very briefly on the trade between Kenya and the US over the past 4 or so years. We know that aggregate trade between the two countries was 966 million in 2020, 1.27 billion in 2021, 1.52 billion in 2022, and 1.41 billion in 2023. Out of that, Kenya's exports to the US were valued at USD 594 million in 2020, 709 million in 2021, 924 million in 2022, and 918 million in 2023. Imports, Kenya's imports from the US, on the other hand, were 372 million in 2020, 561 million USD in 2021, 599 million USD in 2022, and 493 million in 2024. Now, gathering here before you, we want to unpack on this theme called building partnerships with the diaspora. And because Just a Bit wants to leave, I want to ask you 3 questions and wrap them up in one go so that I can release you and your neighbor can represent you going forward. One, to the panel, and Mr. Justin in particular, where does the power of the diaspora lie? We're talking about this power. Where does it lie? Can it support Kenya's exports? Secondly, you have told us you are the chairman of the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency. And export promotion or export trade is one of the key pillars of the current administration, right? How do we use the platform offered by the diaspora to increase our exports into the US, to find the right importer and a buyer, and possibly to maneuver through the compliance requirements of the US government for us to grow exports into this country? Finally, or thirdly, the already existing supply value chains in the US, already known who is doing what and what have you. How do we use the diaspora to disrupt this and make sure that Kenyan exporters can also be able to break into these value chains and export more into the US? So, sir, because you are leaving, speakers hold those 3 questions in the time that you require. Then you let me and these other colleagues to go through the rest of the things detail by detail. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mandu. And your questions are very, very relevant. I'm very happy to be here. Good afternoon to you all. I think the first question about the Diaspora Connect. How can the Diaspora help Kenyan exporters, and how can we connect to do greater sales out of Kenya? Of course, as you all know, the Kenya Kwanza manifesto is very clear. It's all about export-led growth. And if I give you the statistics, they're quite shocking. Over the last 10 years or more, we've averaged about a $6 billion export from Kenya to all over the world, and our imports have been largely flat at around $16 billion. During COVID, we saw that import value go down to $14 billion, and then post-COVID, we saw a rebound factor to $18 billion, and in 2022, it went up as high as $20 billion. So all of a sudden, a $10 billion trade imbalance between imports and exports became a $15 billion trade imbalance in favor of imports, and we saw the pressure on the Kenya shilling. The Kenya shilling moved from 110 to 120 to 130 to 168 because of uncertainty of us meeting our obligation, debt obligation in June this year on the Eurobond, and then back down to 148 and then down to 132. But it tells you that the pricing of the shilling has now been priced into the imbalance of trade. So where are we now in 2024? Our imports have come down a little bit, but that's because of the weak shilling, and now we're back at about $10 to $12 billion deficit. So the whole idea of Kenya and my role and responsibility as the chair of Kenya Exports is to have a zero-sum game, to move our exports from 6 billion to 16 billion, to reduce the balance of trade, both in goods and in services. Our services export is about $5 billion, out of which $4 billion comes in from the diaspora. So thank you guys, you are one of the biggest export that we have, and I'm very, very proud to say that you are making the needle. So how can we use you better, and how can we connect Kenya better to this market? I think our president is very clear. He's looking at diaspora income increasing from $4 billion to $10 billion. He signed a deal with Germany the other day with 250,000 Kenyans. We get 1 million people coming out of our schools and universities every year. Now we need to house them in jobs, and good paying jobs. Where can we do that? Of course, we can do them in our own home, in our industry, in our service sector. But by and large, there are lots of opportunities outside Kenya as well. And we've seen that in Dubai, we've seen that in Saudi, we've seen that in Qatar. We are seeing it also in Germany. And we're now creating the right curriculum for those young people who want to actually have a vested interest or a vested career outside. For example, even Japan is looking for young people. So can we teach Japanese in our school, or can we teach German in our schools? And I think those are the discussions we are having seriously, because the Kenyan workers are very, very hardworking, and they're very industrious. They actually contribute to the economy. Like I said, $4 billion is a very big number. It's our number one export, if I call that export. And so how can we connect ourselves to actually focus on the Kenya government agenda of export-led growth? And it's a deliberate export-led growth. Of course, we can use most of you as agents for some of the products that we manufacture. And how can we, I was just talking to my friend here, I just met him a few minutes ago, and we're already talking that, look, I told him we need to disrupt this market to actually go into the formal business. If I want to sell into Walmart or to one of those big retailers, the whole compliance process is so complex that by the time I finish with compliance, I'm already fatigued. And the social compliance, the quality compliance, the community compliance, the standards are very high, and we have to make sure that we meet all the standards. But by and large, how do you disrupt that? And in today's technology age, you can actually, forget doing this B2B business. And I think all of us have been doing B2B, business to business, and then buying it out of a store here in the US. What if we start doing B2C, from a business in Kenya to a consumer in the US? We use the technology platforms, we use the logistics partners, we use companies who are in the logistics business, like we have panelists from the logistics side. How can I overnight deliver, or how can I have distribution centers of product here? And as the chair of the Export and Branding Agency, we're already thinking of creating Kenya House all across the continent, because the Continental Free Trade Agreement is a reality. We've got 1.4 billion Africans, we've got $3.5 trillion economy on our doorstep. and it's going to be the world's biggest trading bloc, free trade between 55 African countries. So as Kenya, we're thinking of creating Kenya House in our strategic markets like DRC, Congo, like South Africa, like Ghana, and we've already started doing trade under the guided trade initiatives under the AFCTA. Like we started exporting tea and batteries to Ghana and West Africa, which was not our traditional markets. And we're thinking the same, that maybe in the US we should have a Kenya House, maybe one in the East Coast, one in the West Coast, maybe one in the center, still at inception stage. But why can't we have Kenya House where we are selling Kenya product and we are selling straight B2C, and all we're doing is giving you space, and we rent out and sublease to you as a manufacturer out of Kenya, so you can have your place in the market. So there are lots of things that we're doing, and those are the disruptive things that we are looking at this point in time, that we really need to make sure that we have route to market, and route to market is really the most difficult thing. I mean, the entire business model today is customer-centric, and if you're not world-class, you're no class. And I believe you cannot be kati-kati. You have to be world-class, and yes, Kenyans have been world-class. We've always run the marathons, and we've always come first. And I think on this one, we'll also come first. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bedi. I can bid you farewell as you go to your next activity. As we come back to the serious business that has brought us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning when I was visiting the Expo down there, I came across a study being run by Food Security Consortium, a group of aspirants in the US. And what caught my eye was honey from Kerio Valley. And I started asking myself, how did you manage to achieve compliance for honey to come into this country, which has been a very difficult task for us to penetrate any other market? And so as we have that at the back of our mind, that we can use the diaspora to bring in some of the unique products because they understand the market, they understand the requirement, they understand the compliance standards much better than we do, we go back to the question that I posed first. Where does the power of the diaspora lie? Where is it lying? Is it on the remittances? Is it what? So let me begin from here. Where does your power lie?
Purchasing power. So to me, how I view the diaspora in terms of trade is a bit different. We have had a conversation, and even with the CS yesterday, that why can't we see the diaspora as the consumer? Have we really harnessed the purchasing power of the diaspora? Let's do an example of UK. If you go to UK, you'll eat English breakfast. You have bacon, they have their standard. The Kenyan breakfast, we know it. We'll have smoky, we'll have the basic one, right? On average, it will be $15 per person. Look at the data of Kenyans. Of course, we don't have the specific data. Let's use Dallas as an example. We have approximately 72,000 Kenyans in Dallas. If they ate breakfast one day, each person of $15, multiply it per month, do it per year, because they will have this product, that is actually generating more revenue. It overpowers the remittance itself. Can we view the diaspora as the purchasing power? And some of the issues that has been there is the distribution centers and the compliance. The diaspora, if you ask them here, the ones who are in Atlanta, can you guys put together a diaspora warehouse? Just them, they will do it. Then the government can make sure that the compliance part has been done. They will access more products. You wake up, unakula nduma, Kenyan made. If you go to buy banana here, it comes from another Caribbean country. Can we get banana? How come Uganda bring banana from Uganda? It comes to US. How come Kisii cannot supply banana to the US? So these solutions that are there, if we harness the diaspora as the purchasing power. If you just, when I was doing my math in the morning, if we just look at the US alone, we'll actually get approximately 17 billion Kenya shillings, just in a 1 year. How about the whole diaspora? Can we do this? So some of these solutions are there, and apart from the distribution, I know Kenyans are already in logistics. He's one of them. If we have those products come here, they're already in business. They'll be able to access and they'll supply to our markets where we live. That will be an easy thing. Let's look at the flowers, another example. The roses that are in the United States today, if you took the roses and you go to Naivasha, look at the roses, they are our roses. They are Kenya roses. But when you look at it, it's from Netherlands. We are ready to make sure those products go to this and direct. How can you solve that? KQ needs input. I work in the aviation industry. I've had conversation with my airline bosses on how KQ, we had a conversation with the mayor of Dallas, for example. He said we can have a conversation how we can partner the cargo part to come to Dallas. One of ours, Engineer Donga, he's in Delta. We work in these industries to facilitate KQ to bring flowers here so that our people here can purchase, can repackage and sell to the Americans. It is doable, Madam Secretary. So those solutions, they're there, but the bureaucracy is the challenge. That is something that the government has to stem it out. Wanataka, 1, 2, 3. So once we clear that, we work on the compliance because the Americans want things so straight. FDA is the main thing when it comes to compliance. And the honey thing, I'm so happy that is here because last time I was in one of the shop in Dallas, and she said, we have tried to bring honey. Look at the meat, for example. The only country that supplies meat to the United States is Zambia, right, in Africa. They have a compliance issue. They came, took the breed, take it back, work on it. We can supply meat in the United States. So let us view the diaspora as the purchasing power, as the consumers. And for sure, export trade will be one of the best, and it will bring a lot of money. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for that. The power of the diaspora as a consumer. Nuru, where's the power of the diaspora lie in export trade?
Thank you, sir. So I think I see the diaspora as investors. I think that diaspora also help with knowledge transfers, so spillovers. So let me speak to both of those two issues. In terms of investment, we've heard from central bank. Today, we've heard from the banks as well. I think the diaspora can definitely facilitate investment to Kenya and such investment to come to export products here. So when you look at angel investors in Nigeria, for example, and what they're doing and how they're organizing themselves, they are actually creating networks, angel networks, to enable Nigerians here to invest in Nigeria. And there is a reciprocal nature aspect where the Nigerians are exporting products here. And there are many examples of such models that work in terms of seeing the diaspora as an investor. We've seen in Ghana, for example, the diaspora bond. Those bonds help because the national government can then invest in infrastructure that ensures the product moves from Kitui to Atlanta, right? So I think this issue of investment is an important one. You started about it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. Let me talk about knowledge spillover and competitiveness. The diaspora have been the quiet, secret insider for countries all over the world. So when you look at Israel, when you look at Egypt, when you look at Morocco, when you look at India, when you look at China, when you look at their citizens, they are transferring knowledge from the US to their home countries. That knowledge helps accelerate the rate of innovation. It helps accelerate the rate of product development. And it also tells us, Mr. Betty was talking about, how do we know what products to export to the US? That is a knowledge spillover issue because the consumers, all of us who are here, can tell our home market what is in demand. I'll give you an example. before I came to the US 3 years ago, I was speaking to Ms. Lina Gituka, who is the CEO of Kenya Wines Limited. And I mentioned to her, have you thought about marketing non-alcoholic beer and wine and cider? And she was like, I don't think people are too interested in that. But if you live here in America, I'm sure we've all been seeing, right? We're seeing the trend. Non-alcoholic drinks are growing at a faster rate than alcoholic drinks. That is a knowledge spillover that we need. So those are just examples of how I think the diaspora can be helpful. The third area I will just note, because I'm with the KEPSA Economic Diplomacy Sector Board, is advocacy. So I think the power that you all have is to lobby and advocate. And I will encourage you to lobby and advocate through KEPSA, lobby and advocate through the Chamber of Commerce, so you have a collective voice. When you have a collective voice, the government has to listen. And also the US government has to listen. So when you look at the India diaspora, the US government listens to them. So why are they not listening to us, right? So we need to definitely organize, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I know the diaspora networks are splintered, the SACCOs are splintered and all this, so we need to sort that issue in terms of economic diplomacy and advocacy and organizing ourselves. And then the last point I'll mention, based on what Mr. Bedi mentioned, was the point of certification. So those who are exporting to here have a big challenge with the certification standards. And unfortunately, those standards are going to get worse and harder. So as much as we're thinking to disrupt by going business to consumer, even that end consumer is looking at certification. They want to see the label. Is it fair trade? Is it non-GMO? There are certain labels that US consumers, beyond just us as diaspora, look for, and it drives price. You can get a price premium just based on certification. So I think there is that opportunity for us who are here in the diaspora to start learning and getting certified to certify. You see the point? So there you can help our SMEs at home certify so their products are more competitive. So I think I'll stop there.
Good, thank you very much. Sir, you have the floor.
Yes, my name is Mohean Joroge, African Shipping. I had the privilege of meeting with Mr. Mbandi this morning, and my take from the conversation I had with him is we have a ton of opportunities. Those men and women in the diaspora who are ready to do business. Imports into the US are facing logistics issues. Logistics starting from distribution, receiving centers, compliance with US laws and regulations. All these are opportunities that the diaspora has not taken advantage of. We have men and women who can rise up and facilitate the import, clearance of goods coming into the US. If a group of people can organize together, and primarily the reason being, it requires a lot of capital, it requires a lot of money to set up a distribution center. We should become like Indians or Chinese and other people like that, join together, people with good capital, have a distribution center somewhere in the middle of the US. Number 2 point that I got from him is their focus is not primarily on the diaspora as a consumer. They are not looking at exporting stuff into the US for the diaspora to consume. We are a very, very small percentage of people in the US population. Maybe Kenyans or the diaspora, if we are even 2 million, that's a very small percentage. They are looking at the US market as a market of over 300 million people. If we can facilitate, we in the diaspora, that these people in Kenya, the business people, the farmers, the manufacturers, they do not have to get on a jet, come here and market their products. They need people to take up those opportunities, things like consumer product, avocados and all those perishable goods. If someone can pick up that challenge, that's a big opportunity. Work with the airlines, work with the US custom regulations. You have an opportunity to sell avocados and those consumer products here. The number 3 challenge that I got from him is primarily logistics, moving goods from point A to point B. We have a lot of Kenyans who are doing logistics. but they do logistics for companies. Can we take the challenge from the business people in Kenya and become the logistic people, the guys who facilitate when the goods come in either by air or they come by sea, pick it up from the port, do the whole custom process, take it to the warehouse, and instead of selling it to Walmart or somebody else, you can sell to Walmart, yes, but with the current technology, you can sell directly to the consumer if you have a distribution center. Someone will order a product, you can package it, you can ship it to the consumer yourself. So all these are opportunities. The only challenge that the diaspora need to overcome is capital. All the things that I'm talking about require a lot of capital. We are talking of several, maybe $100 million. We do have a problem, and I'm going to point it here, for us is when we do business, I've come across us as the diaspora doing business kienyeji. Let us move away from kienyeji. There is no exporter in Kenya who is going to ship you 10 containers worth with goods worth $10 million through a handshake. You need to have a company, a registered company, meeting standards, have a financial background, then get the product here, market it, sell it, and make sure that the guy in Kenya gets paid. So all these are opportunities that, I mean, these are bare opportunities. I'm actually, as a shipper, I'm challenged. And I'm actually thinking of sealing one of those holes somewhere, but I need a lot of other guys to come and fill all the other gaps. Thank you.
I take up this question of what's the diaspora's power? Where does it lie? I think this is a multifaceted situation. What we are having is a significant lack of understanding of the diasporic community by those in Kenya, particularly policymakers. The Kenyan diaspora is the most hardworking, most technologically savvy diaspora, particularly of the African subcontinent, that this country has seen. The problem is we're not very well understood by the Kenyan government, and particularly even the Kenyan economy. So I'm going to challenge both sides, the Kenyan side and the diaspora side, because I'm a fairly newer returnee. I started reinvesting in Kenya in 2019. So I can speak to specific challenges that I have seen on this side and that side. People always speak about remittances. That's the easy one. But when you look even within the subcluster of remittances, we forget two things. Most remittances are sustenance and not investment. Most folks are sending money for medical care, parent care, school fees, and building a home in their village, right? And then you're often frustrated because you find out, you go back home and you found out instead of a bungalow, you have a shanty, right? Every diaspora person has a story, right? I can probably see the physical scars on your body of how many times you've been misled, stolen from, frustrated, to the extent that I always advise people these days, please go to JFK, spend $1,500 and go to Nairobi yourself, because you would lose a lot more than getting on that plane. So I want to respond to this from the diasporic frustrations. But then, where do we go from here? I want to challenge the diaspora by what my colleague just said. We need to stop disenfranchising our investments. We need to start really being serious and create vehicles for investments that are significant monies pulled together. For instance, the diasporic examples she gave of India and Israel, what those guys have found out is you can create a private equity fund, domicile it out of Cayman Islands. You don't have to trust me. We create instruments of accountability. We take 10 people who can raise $500,000. We take 20 people who can raise $250,000, and we find 5 people who can each raise $1 million. I know they all exist in the Kenyan diaspora community, but everyone is trying to do their own thing. We can't build an economy from individual investments. So we need to create private equity vehicles that have multiple investors, in which you have quarterly statements that are posted, in which you're not worried about someone stealing from you. But what that gives you, it gives you the opportunity to invest in something bigger and not just your own sustenance economy. Now, the other problem we're having, and I want to challenge our banking colleagues, for you to find an FDIC-insured commercial bank in the US, there are banks in the US that sell for less than $10 million. The remittances, we are missing the real power of the remittances. Remittances are useful when they are reinvested or saved, not when they are consumed necessarily. So how do we create, for instance, the ability for us in the diaspora to put money in a Chase debit or in a Huntington Bank debit or a Kenyan American banking debit for your folks to use their money as a tool for further investments and for savings? We can do that by one simple thing. We raise money, we get a bank that's licensed in the US, and we get a bank that's licensed in Kenya. It's very doable. It's very doable. We take charge of our remittances instead of Western Union and MoneyGram, okay? We compete. We don't even have to take 100% of the market. What if we took 5% of the market? It's significant if we control 5% of our remittances. Our folks on the Horn of Africa are doing it. The Somalia remittances don't go through Western Union and MoneyGram. They're 99% through Dahabshil and Hormuz and other vehicles of remittances. So we have to be serious. Both the diaspora needs to get serious and the Kenyan government needs to get serious by creating vehicles. Finally, what I want to say is we need to start creating a clearinghouse of information, of partnership building. For instance, when I was talking to my friend and he spoke about a warehouse and their interest in B2C, directly going to the consumer, I said, you have to understand the US. This is the other big frustration. A lot of Kenyans misunderstand the US. The US is like 50 Kenyas together. Let me repeat this. The US is 50 Kenyas combined and then some. The only comparative example to the US would be if Africa became a country. When I fly from Minneapolis to San Francisco, it's like me flying from Gaborone to Abuja. So when people say the US, no. We have to start thinking about how to do business with Tennessee, how to do business with Georgia, how to do business with Minnesota, how to do business with California, how to do business with Massachusetts, because that would be a better relationship for Kenyan economy. When you're directly finding someone in Memphis who has logistics, someone in Arkansas who can find what you need, and we create a diasporic clearinghouse relationship at your ministry that specifically does matchmaking so that we can now actually partner and we create not only just public-private investments, but diasporic Kenyan partnerships based on market intelligence. We don't have to force this. I'm going to conclude by saying business will generally find the solution it's looking for. If you're in Guatemala and you're looking for cement, and they tell you the best and most affordable cement is coming from Kenya, trust me, you'll go find it. We need not to force this, but we need to create the tools for us to do business in an intelligent, affordable manner so that the diaspora participates and does knowledge transfer. But you can't do that in a vacuum. You need to do that when we create the vehicles for success. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. That question seems to have created more questions. And before I come to you in the banking sector, a few things I want to point out. You are talking about, it should not just be about remittances. It should be something different. So, and KCB Group is after remittances. How do we then use your knowledge in the financial services sector to support Kenyans to do what they're talking about here? You talked about logistics. You talked about distribution networks. You talked about packaging. You talked about this whole range of things. We're also being challenged that the power of the diaspora lies in the fact that they live in different states, therefore they understand different ways of doing things. So that we don't just export to the US, but to export to a particular state. So from the banking perspective, how do we turn that around? For I know that out of the $100 that go home, nearly 80% goes to social support, consumption, education, and what have you. And very little goes into real investment that the earlier panel was talking about, real investment. So how, from the financial perspective, how do you help us to achieve that, to tap into this power of the diaspora?
Thank you so much. Let me start by saying the diaspora community plays a very positive role in first transferring skills. Let's say it as is. Second, bringing the much needed innovation. Because even if you look at the infrastructure, technological infrastructure in Africa, we are really lagging behind. But having said that, at least half of the continent now is connected. And then if you look at the entrepreneurial skills of the diasporians, none to match that. If you are comparing with Africa, the diaspora have the best entrepreneurial skills. Now, the second thing that we need to look at is then how do we consolidate these funds and make them meaningful? And if you have an opportunity to Google the story of Singapore, it was actually intentional that you say, yes, we do know that there's this money from the diasporians. We do appreciate that this money from the diasporians go to meet various needs. How do we facilitate the money to go direct to these various needs? And the one which is remaining for savings, it can be consolidated, just as my brother here said, and invested in equity. You know, that's something that you've not done, and that's why we have to be intentional and say, can we consolidate this fund and then now invest? And invest where? In Africa. Let me give you an example. Food in Africa comes from elsewhere. There are tons and tons of food coming from out of Africa. If we say the first priority, we invest in food security in Africa, you already have the demand for your entrepreneurial skills. If you just go simplistic that way, look at the automobile sector. It's only South Africa that we talk about 1% of the vehicles are electric vehicles. That's where the world is going to. Look at that big opportunity. Look at the pharmaceutical. We import literally everything. What does that say? There's a business case that there's enough of demand in Africa. If you look at intra-regional trade in Africa, it's 15%. Go to Europe, 60%. Go to America, 40%. The Asian community is 30%. So what we are asking for here is that, can we come together and have instruments that can consolidate all these funds, and then thereafter we start investing, because there's no question about the demand. The demand, there is demand 100%. And then finally, look at the logistic and transport segment. This food must move from one place to another. So if you're looking for business case, there's business case. But my biggest question, why aren't we making that first step to create this conducive environment to consolidate this fund and thereafter invest? And we, as the commercial banks, are here to say, let's come together and start doing it and allow us enable that to happen. Thank you.
I can see somebody choosing to stand before my time, and yet I cannot stone her. But these are the critical issues that are coming out of this conversation. That the power of the diaspora is so diverse, and that we can do so much when we tap into, one, diaspora as consumers, that's coming out very clearly. Diasporas as source of knowledge and innovation to produce more. Diaspora as, I can call them the last mile connectivity for Kenyan exporters into the various states. Either when Just was talking about establishing a Kenya house, my thinking is, does government need to do this? No. It's for the diaspora to put their money together, you have put it, and I say we have put up a warehouse in Atlanta. We have put up a warehouse in Dallas, in other places where there's what we call high consumption pockets. And how then do Kenyan exporters partner with you because you have put up warehouses, all right? We talk about understanding standards. I talked about that honey from Kerio Valley. And I was asking, how do I get to know how you achieved this so that this knowledge can go to other parts which are producing honey? Ukambani is a very clear example who produce a lot of honey, and other pockets in the drier parts of Kenya. How do we then get this understanding back home to support our exports into the US? You have talked about meat from Zambia, right? How do we understand the requirements for meat in the US from your perspective? Then we begin working backwards so that yes, we can export if we comply to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then how does the banking sector support us apart from investing, I always call it the personal economic survival activities, PESA, those little, that will, what have you, to pulling together this huge resource, right? We talk about almost 4-5 billion US dollars every year. It's so much money. If that money could be put together, imagine the impact it would have on the Kenyan economy. But who can organize us in that space? Nuru, you want to shed light on that?
Yeah, it's not me who is doing it, but I wanted to say that you made a comment that I wanted to say that I don't think the diaspora should organize themselves without the support of the government. Because from my research looking at Indonesia, Malaysia, Egypt, the government actually partners with private sector. I think China is an excellent example. Alibaba is the platform we need. We need a Kenyan version because that will create those linkages. And quite frankly, the Kenyan government benefits when there is a higher velocity of trade because you make more. So I do think, and Madam Anastasia is here representing the banks, I do think that through Kenya Bankers Association, for example, there is that opportunity for government to partner with the banking industry to create a platform that enables that linkage. But indeed, the diasporans need to have one voice. Not, like even in Atlanta, I think they're now, AKPA was the first, but now I think they're like 5 different networks, right? So it's and I think it's the same in many of the states, right? So diaspora needs to organize themselves, and then us on the Kenya side, I think banking is core and government is necessary. So I think I would say that.
I can just make a quick comment. When you guys design solutions, this may not be working. Look, we need to be very intentional if you want to be inclusive for the diaspora. I'll give you one quick example. Let's look at Kenya Airways. Everyone was excited when Kenya Airways started flying direct out of the US, right? But where do they fly from? JFK. How many of you have taken that flight and seen that 70% of the passengers started out of Dallas or Minneapolis or Boston? They're spending 3 hours to get to JFK. Then if I'm in Minneapolis, I'm trying to get to Nairobi. Sometimes I'm in Nairobi for 4 days. 4 days and I'm back to the US. Sometimes going to Amsterdam becomes more desirable because I have to leave Minneapolis and go to JFK. And if you have luggage, forget it because you're going to change terminals. No, there is a significant design flaw in the solutions you're creating because there's little effective diasporic input. We are in Dallas, we're in Atlanta, we're in Massachusetts, and we're in Minnesota. We're not in New York. If we are, we're in New Jersey, and there's very few of us. So we have to start inclusive, intellectual input in solutions because that's just one quick example, right? Even if you created connectivity, you can't check your luggage on KQ from Minneapolis, and you can't check it in from Dallas either. So just simple solutions like such agreements with an airline to check through American Airlines or Delta to get your cargo or your luggage to KQ. We have to start getting intentional in how we solve problems. And because we are the 48th county, I don't think people in Kenya realize, Mr. PS, you have a 48th county, and it's called the Diaspora County. You better harness it, because it can be a tremendous net value gain for our country.
This conversation is becoming juicy, but we must move on. Just two quick ones, very quick. Then do you want us to take some questions from the audience?
Yes, we'll take a few questions.
Some two quick ones. We take some questions from the audience, but you can see how things are getting better.
Yeah, I'll go back to my point of imports from Kenya into the US. That's where the opportunity is for me, and that's the missing link for imports to the US. The diaspora, people here in the diaspora do have a lot of money. I can tell you that we have people in the diaspora with accounts holding several $100,000, $1 million, and we can work from the US side. For us to be able to grow the imports into the US, I'll stop focusing on what's happening in Kenya. The guys, the business people in Kenya, the manufacturers can jump those handles, go through all those regulations on their own. I don't have to be there. I would focus on being here in the US. What can we do as a diaspora? Most of us maybe are not business people. We need business people to come together as a group, form a strong company, bring their resources together, bring together $2, $3, $4 million, and figure out how they're going to work with the manufacturers in Kenya, how they're going to work with the farmers, how they're going to work with the coffee estates, the tea estates, build a warehouse somewhere in the US, bring that coffee and tea here, work with the banks here. We don't need, I don't think I'll be able to work with banks in Kenya to finance operations here. We do have facilities to finance businesses here in the US. And if we can do that, we will open big opportunities to bring stuff into the US, and most of us who will take this challenge have an opportunity to make money, and that's what I'm seeing.
Thank you for that.
Just a quick one. I think diaspora conversation has changed currently under the President Ruto. What my sister was saying, that we have so many associations, it's okay. But the conversation has changed. Right now we have a State Department that is really coordinating the diaspora affairs on all of us. We can come together as the diasporian for sure to have our own distribution center. The policy, and I'm very sure PS will be sharing maybe, the way you look at it, and we had a chance also to participate the diaspora policy ourselves, and she gave us an opportunity, said, guys, how do you want us to structure you? And we shared our feedback. So I think there's a lot of changes that is coming from the government, and we are ready to partner with them. We are ready to support them. Just the interest of our people. I'm pro-diaspora, to be sure.
Over to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can we give a loud of applause to this team? Thank you, good job, moderator Michael Mando and the panelists. That was very great discussions. I'll give Q&A. Please, I may just do 2. So if you have a burning question, wow, this table.
Thank you very much. sorry. Thank you very much. My name is David Mutua. Na mimi ni Mkenya. I'm from Ohio. And my question is, because I'm facilitating a delegation to come to Ohio, which is Ohio government has given. We've talked to the governor. We've talked to the structure, the Chamber of Commerce. We're actually partnering with the Chamber of Commerce to see if we can bring a delegation. Actually, next week, we've been accepted. Ohio has accepted, to bring a delegation to come to a table and have discussions. Things like import and export, money and all that, the things that we can do together. As diaspora, I'm here talking, saying, I'm facilitating this. What is it that we can do together? Like next week, if we can start next week and then we start from there. And one thing I want to say with diaspora, let's challenge ourselves and get to the government, talk to the governors. so that we can start the structures from there, kind of building these structures together with these governments. So I've started that with Ohio. We have been accepted. There's an invitation on the table for even our president to come anytime, and other delegations, and I can facilitate that as next week. So please, we are looking forward to that.
Before you answer that question, because we want to move fast, I want you to get that so we can answer all the questions together. Just be brief.
Thank you. My name's Salad Ali. I'm the founder and the CEO of a company called Go Shipping Cargo, based in Kenya and most of the major cities in the world. Actually, I had more, the relationship today we are talking about, the only thing can be solved is logistics. And we believe the diaspora, maybe mostly they don't understand the knowledge about the logistic of shipping goods from USA to Kenya and shipping goods from Kenya to USA. Mostly is that the current government nowadays has given a lot of opportunity in terms of what's called pre-entry. If you want to ship goods from USA and you want to have a small Amazon in Kenya selling a lot of goods from here, I think nowadays people, they're sending the goods to DHL and FedEx. That one doesn't help you. It only increases your costs and you can't sell that goods in Kenya. The same applies the way Noha says, if you want to have a small Alibaba in the goods of Kenyan products to here, I think sending goods with international companies. I wish Mr. Chairman supposed to be here, but he left, concerning about the manufacturers. We have seen a lot of time Kenyan manufacturers signing contracts with the DHL and FedEx. It won't bring, bottom up means dealing with the local companies who has more knowledge and can do a lot of things and give you the solutions. There's what's called conciliation cargos. If you want to ship goods here for the SMEs, you cannot ship through paying 100% of tax. But if you send through conciliations, you can save a lot of costs. So maybe if you want to do a lot of business from Kenya to there, you can see Go Shipping CEO here giving more consultations about it.
Thank you. We'll have one more, and that's it, and then we can answer. Yes?
Thank you, Kate. I am Philip Masila Mutisha, Professor of Education, North Carolina Central University in North Carolina, soon retiring June 30th to go full-time working with what we have created as Diaspora Outreach Development Foundation. Outreach, which touches all that, and we're not just focusing on Kenya only, but also in the whole continent, the 55. So that's coming. And you will see information up front in the desk. But my question is, since we're talking about trade, I need you, please, to explain how the trade policy is. We don't hear that. We do not know. We don't even reference it. Second, how do we establish as diaspora, connecting with each other here and being advocates, lobbyists, like other diaspora people, to actually relax that not only export-import tariffs, but relationship to get a visa to go do a business, come do a business here. I see even government leaders being refused a visa to come here. That shows that we are not in front of advocacy to educate the government here and to be able to have a free trade. That means you have to free transportation in terms of open trade. So there is a big learning curve there. I just wanted to ask how do you communicate, Minister of Foreign Affairs in the diaspora now, how do we as diasporan help in terms of alleviating that problem with open trade and exchanges?
Thank you for all the ones who asked the questions. Please summarize that, and we can wrap this up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know some hands want to fall off because they wanted to ask questions, but it's too late. Panelists, there are very interesting questions here. And I'll not to allocate to anyone in particular, but one, how do we partner with the Kenyans in diaspora to facilitate trade missions? I think that's what I was asking, trade missions into US. That's question one. The second question is, we have diasporans who are doing some logistics, right? But how do we stick to UPS and stick place to DHL and what have you? How do we make it possible for Kenyan MSME operators who want to export into the US to use logistics facilities and companies that are run by the diaspora? And finally, how do we help to connect these diasporans? What is it that we can do as government so that you can talk more freely with one another, create better connections than has been the case? These are the key questions. So maybe, how do I begin this? Our colleagues in logistics can speak to logistics. Nuri will speak to policy aspects. How do we do this? Then I'll leave the other questions to the two gentlemen and one lady. How do we make it easier for diaspora to connect to one another? How do we organize joint trade missions with them to these states? All right? In no particular order, or you want to give the first go? No, you spoke last. Let me give Nuru.
Thank you. I think in terms of advocacy, the reason why I said one voice, it's okay to have many SACCOs, many associations in the US. I'm not lobbying for consolidation. But when it comes to engaging with government, you have to have one voice. So I think it's important that the different networks that are there start. It's almost like the model is called collective impact. There's actually a model that's called collective impact that guides you on how, when you have many different organizations with the same goal, you create a framework to share knowledge and work together without ceding your mandate, right? So I think it's important that through Danson and other networks, I think it's important that the diaspora associations, SACCOs and networks start one collective body, because that way you have a harmonized, unified voice to the government. I think it's important. The other point about policy, why I brought up Kenya Bankers Association, because that's at the advocacy and policy level, and they can definitely engage. The banking industry needs to be engaged from a policy perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to add.
You are dying to go.
Yes. We have a suggestion to government to have Kenya Diaspora Council as the body that can work on the unity for the diaspora. A legislative proposal of having the Kenya Diaspora Council that will coordinate with the government. Number two, our missions are far away. Our trade attaché is based in Washington, D.C. Business is in Atlanta, business is in Dallas. So we need the trade offices, Kenya trade offices. In some of the substantive regions, we have a good population of Kenyans. They will coordinate with your office so faster, because we are like 8 hours. If you want to reach your office or you want to reach someone from government, it's a process. Also, if you want to engage the locals, the local community in Atlanta, and telling them we need to go to Washington, D.C. before you can meet our ambassador, it's quite challenging. So let us have the trade office. It will bring us together and coordinate us more.
Moderator, we have 2 more minutes. So 1 minute, 1 minute.
Logistics? Yes. Then the two can share a minute. Can I do that? Yes.
Yes, I'll address the issue of how we can bring the diaspora together through the help of the government. And I'll start by going back to the government, saying that I believe we do have a business attaché at the embassy. Unfortunately, as I've been doing business since 2002, I've not had a business attaché reach out to me, shipping to Kenya. I would like the government business attaché at the embassy to reach out to the Kenyan diaspora, find out what we can do, and help us with the problems that we run into. Business people do not see problems. Problems are opportunities for business people. But these opportunities, we cannot be able to exercise them unless the government facilitates us by creating an environment that is conducive for business. We actually do not need the government to do business for us. All we need is for the government to create a conducive environment for us to be able to import things into the US from Kenya and going through the handles with the help of the business at the embassy.
Thank you, thank you.
know, those two gentlemen, just a minute. He's in yellow, so give me a yellow card. Before I could receive the yellow card because of his tie,
Yes.
she giving me a red card.
Yeah.
But just
Do
1
the
minute
closing
for the two.
remarks and we move on.
Sure. Look, the gentleman from Ohio, thank you very much. What you're doing is exceptional. So I'll just say do more of that, but find what your local state is good at, okay? And build relationships with the 47 counties, not just the national government alone, right? So you can link up, say, Bungoma or even Kakamega or even Wajir County or whatever place, look at specific linkages and do more of what you're doing. And then I encourage others who are in other states, find what your state is good at. If you're in North Carolina, if you're in the Raleigh-Durban corridor, you're a biotech state. If you're in Massachusetts, you're in tech state. If you're in San Francisco, you're a tech state. So look at what you're good at and what your linkages would make. And then let's just get serious. Like, for me, I'm not really big on this whole issue of unity. Entrepreneurship is about disruption. It's about creating solutions. So don't pay too much attention on this unity stuff. Find the PS's number and call him.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you
you, thank you,
Right.
thank you.
Finally, if there is a problem, then you will come up with a solution. That's the challenge I'm throwing to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
thank
finally,
you.
thank you very much for the opportunity. For those of you who are here, get hold of anybody from the State Department for Diaspora Affairs. They have my contact, both telephone number and mobile number and email. I'm very easy to reach. So on that note, thank you very much for giving us your audience. Please,
Thank you.
a round
Thank
of applause
you.
for the panelists.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's appreciate the panel, the moderator. Thank you so much, guys. You did so great.